Hey, what's up, guys? Houston here. Now, some of you all are probably still wondering, can you get up to $50,000 in funding using the Navy Federal Pledge Loan hack? And how many Navy Federal Pledge loans do you actually need in order to qualify for funding? Well, here's the thing about it. In reference to the Navy Federal Pledge Loan, you need to actually understand what it actually is. And the biggest thing that most people look over is the actual primary account. Okay, and that actual primary account can actually boost up your credit score. Okay, now here's the thing about it. Talking about the Navy Federal Pledge Loan hack, many people are still overlooking what's the value of it. All right, so here's the thing about it. If you're an individual that manages to get into Navy Federal, okay, it's so important to understand the Navy Federal internal score. Okay, that's the reason why people focus on the Navy Federal Pledge Loan, because it actually helps boost up the internal score. Now, with your internal score going from 100 up to 450, this here is especially good for people that have bad credit. Okay, now, do you need multiple pledge loans? No, you actually only need one when you have bad credit. Can you have multiple? Yeah, but you actually only need one, and I'm going to explain to you why. Here's the situation. When you join Navy Federal, looking at the internal score, I always tell you, you should have direct deposit if possible. You need to have a checking account, flagship checking account preferably. If you don't have the flagship checking account, now here's the thing that's going to make up for that. If you have at least 20 deposits in your regular checking account, this makes up for not having the flagship checking account. Okay, so that's something that many people also look over. Now, also having a savings account. And when you having bad credit, you might as well also get the rewards card. Okay, it used to be the N rewards card. Now they just switched it over to the rewards card, the secured rewards card, right? Now, here's another key thing that I would tell you in terms of a bigger factor that helps you get that higher internal score is if you had a CD or a money market account with Navy Federal. Now, also understanding, if you're trying to get $50,000 in funding, is that just with Navy Federal, or are you willing to look beyond Navy Federal and look at other institutions? If that's the case, I'm going to tell you about some of those as well. All right. Now, going back, here's the thing about it. With the Navy Federal Pledge Loan, talking about the Pledge Loan hack now, what it is that people will deposit a certain amount on that loan to open up that loan, okay? Then they would wait till that loan post, and usually they would pay at least 80 to 90% of that loan down, okay? Now you have this primary trade line that has 80 to 90% paid off, then that other and also, let me explain about the time frame and that other remaining. This is where the time frame is going to come in. You spread that out. You can spread it out over a year, 2 years, 3 years. Some people choose 5 years. Just depends on the amount. Now, here's the thing about it that I would tell you, because what's happening by that pledge loan posting also is giving your personal credit score a boost as well. All right. Now, again, this is a primary trade line, not an authorized user. All right. Now, I would tell you in reference to, if you had somebody that's with Navy Federal that has a good credit history, like with our company or whatever, then like authorized users from Navy Federal going onto a file that's with Navy Federal and you're trying to get funding, it definitely increases your chances of higher limits. All right. So that's also something that you should take into consideration. Now, here's the 3 things that makes it a big factor of whether you should be using the Navy Federal Pledge Loan Hack, or even if you need the Navy Federal Pledge Loan, period. Here's the thing about it. If you're going after a personal loan with just Navy Federal, the Navy Federal Pledge Loan does not help, okay? The Navy Federal Pledge Loan helps with getting credit cards, car loans, and business funding, okay? So in terms of, like, if you're trying to get credit cards, then of course, because Navy Federal uses TransUnion, Experian, FICO 9, all right? So when you have bad credit, like say like a 580 credit score or something like that, then they also look at the relationship that goes back to your internal score. How long have you had this relationship? How many accounts you have with Navy Federal? So these are the things that are actually taking place in terms of helping to determine if you're going to get that car loan, that when you have bad credit, that credit card with a high limit, also the business. All right. Now, some of you all like to try to go for the Navy Federal business account. All right. Now, you do need 2 internal scores. All right. So with adding on the pledge loan, okay, this does help as a primary, okay, and also helps with the internal score, but also they also look at your personal credit score when it comes to business funding. Now, the good thing about it with the business funding with Navy Federal, you don't have to have any revenue in the business, okay? So that's the great part about it. The down part about it, if you open up a checking account with them and you make deposits and stuff, it will not be reporting to the business credit bureaus, okay? So it's not going to report to Experian Business, Equifax Business, Small Business Financial Exchange, and Dun & Bradstreet will not pick up this information, okay? Now, here's the thing about it. That's the reason I tell people you need to have multiple accounts, especially when you're trying to get funding, especially business funding, all right? That being said, going back to the pledge loan. Now, in terms of when you have a 580 credit score, this also matters very big. Sorry, guys, because there's a bee flying around. I don't want to get stung. But the cards that you want to go for, I would tell you, would be the rewards cards, all right? Now, the reason that you want to go for these cards, stay away from the Navy Federal Amex card, all right? This Navy Federal Amex card is not going to do you the justice versus the rewards card that are either you choosing a Visa or MasterCard. And here's the reason why. With the Navy Federal Visa MasterCards, those cards you can actually liquidate. And the way that you actually liquidate those cards, you would get the Navy Federal Gold card, okay? That's the prepaid card. Then you can transfer the balances you approved for over to those cards, and you can use it like a regular debit card and things of that nature. And for those of you that actually just need cash capital for whatever investments, all right? Now, talking about that $50,000, again, with the Navy Federal Pledge Loan, you cannot use that to get the Navy Federal loan. It has nothing to do with that. Again, focusing on the right type of credit cards. And the one card you do not want to get is that Navy Federal American Express. Now, a lot of people, they focus on the Navy Federal flagship card that goes up to $80,000. Again, I would not focus even on that card. The reason is because what they do, like if you want that $80,000 card, if you're already at the maximum amount of funding they're already giving you, then what happens is that if you want that card, they will actually, do you want to do a product exchange? Okay. And so by you doing a product exchange, then they take the balances off those other cards and put it on to that card. Okay. And that will help you get that $80,000. That's the reason why I tell people don't focus on that flagship card. All right. Now, going back, leveraging the Navy Federal Pledge Loan. Since it is a primary account, and you have a 580 credit score, again, by you paying it off up to 80-90%, this is also may increase your credit score another 10, maybe 15 points, okay? So even if your 580 is pushing you closer to that 620, then being able to add on like some more primary trade lines. Now, again, some of the primary trade lines that I tell you all that's easier to get, you got the Shop IFJ primary account that goes from 8,000 up to 15,000. However, I tell people, do not get that trade line if you're already at least a 680, 690, all right? If you're on the lower end of that, it's more beneficial to give you a bigger boost. It's actually going to be a line of credit, okay? And then you also may want to look at like Credit Strong, but again, do not go for the Credit Strong bigger trade lines. Go for the Credit Strong line that's only about $5,000. And the reason is because you also have to focus on your DTI, your debt to income ratio. So that's the reason why I tell people don't do this. And then one other trade line you can look at also is with Tomo, since Tomo goes up to 30,000, but it is a charge card. So just keep that in mind. Now, other type of primary trade lines you can look at is like a rent reporter, reporting the rent and stuff. That's also a primary trade line that actually is going to aid your accounts, all right? Like I said, and I mentioned also about the Navy Federal AU as well, okay? This being just an AU, however, if it's from Navy Federal and you're trying to get higher limits with Navy Federal, the more positive trade lines you have, and plus more internal accounts you have with Navy Federal, the higher the chance of you with a bad credit score of 580 being able to get more higher limit credit cards with Navy Federal, okay? Now, one thing I did not talk about was in terms of income. Now, here's the interesting thing about it. I always tell people with Navy Federal, again, because they are relationship based, even if you have less than $45,000 in income, they still may give you a $25,000 credit card, okay? So in terms of stickler, where some credit card companies and bank, in order to get higher limits, they usually want you about 65, 70 or higher with the income, not with Navy Federal. And so that's one of the greater things about Navy Federal that people like, is because you don't have to have the best income in order to qualify for higher limit credit cards, okay? Now, I hope that this video explains some things to clarify. Yes, you can get $50,000 with bad credit, okay, with Navy Federal. Now, I did mention about some other creditors, all right, since those primary trade lines, once those primary trade lines start reporting to the credit file, then you may want to go to other creditors and stuff. And now one of the bigger ones that I continue to stress for people that I think is better than Navy Federal when you want higher limits is with the State Department Federal Credit Unions, because not only do they give up to $100,000 credit cards, but they also give up to $100,000 personal loans as well as lines of credit. And like I said, if you meet the minimum criteria of at least a 620 credit score, all right, so that's the reason why I tell you it's always good to look around, because there are better places than Navy Federal. All right. So if you have any other question about business credit funding, personal credit funding, removing negative items off the credit, click the link in the description. Schedule a one-on-one consultation. Thank you.